and welcome to this week's review of the latest episode of My Hero Academia entitled The Wrong Way to Put Out a Fire. You know the rules, and so do I. Before we get into the review itself, I want to know what you thought about it, dear listener. Let me know in the comment section down below, and you will be read out in next week's show. Whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good. Now on to the review itself. Now, I will be honest with you, dear listener, I have not written anything for this week's review. The reason being, quite simply, is because what on earth do you even say about an episode like this? I think that, as always, we'll just get into the positives of all of this, but this is one of those episodes which just almost stands alone in terms of the quality therein. It takes on a whole different form and tackles a whole different strand of subject matter, which, whilst the show itself has not exactly shied away from it, it's never really tackled it in quite this almost visceral detail of it. We get treated to what can only be best described as a nightmarish descent into domestic insanity, this creeping, depressing, depraved terror, which is fantastic to see, even though it is oftentimes deeply troubling in what can only be described as, I don't even know how to describe it. I will say here and now, before anyone gets any kind of feelings of ambiguity here, I did enjoy this week's episode, though it's always that case of the word enjoyment always feels like it's being used incorrectly in situations like this, because how can you in good faith say, oh yeah, I enjoyed the episode that was about domestic abuse? You really can't say it, but I took something from the drama, I think is best way to say it, because this was a heavy one. I think this is probably one of the heavier episodes we've had of My Hero Academia, and I think that, for me personally, it is probably the heaviest thus far. I mean, I thought all the stuff with Endeavour just breaking down and collapsing in last week's episode was pretty much the ne plus ultra of this entire series, but no, we get this week's episode, which at times it felt like watching a horror movie. It genuinely did. Just, it's like that moment when you're watching a horror movie and you found that character that you like and you hope makes it through to the end, but then you see that shadow in the background, then you see that point of view shot, then you hear that musical sting, depending on the particular series it is, and you know, well, that's it, but there's still that part of you that hopes it gets away. I mean, I don't want to sound like an idiot here, but there were moments within this episode, during this flashback stuff, where I was just hoping things would go another way, that all the things, all the disaster that's happened as a result of all this just wouldn't occur, but it occurred, again, in far rather visceral detail, or as much as one possibly can do in a Saturday evening anime programme. From the very moment this episode began, there's just this constant sense of foreboding when we have the meeting, seemingly the first time ever meeting, of Ray and Endeavour, and how, look, there's no polite way in saying this, but how Ray's father effectively pimped her out, just sold her into marriage. In the episode itself, Endeavour reflects on it being that was a quirk marriage. It only really happened because he wanted a successor who would have the powers of fire and ice, and because of the fact that Ray's family was hard up and desperate to let the good times roll again, they were quite happy to just send her off into it. Their relationship from that very moment and seemingly forever has just been one that's been almost totally loveless, which I think is one of the most depressing things I've seen in My Hero Academia, just full stop. There was a part of me that did think that way back when maybe they were more of an item, maybe they were more of a couple, and just things just slowly decayed and fell apart, but no, there doesn't ever seem to have ever been that case. Endeavour's sole focus from the moment he met her to far into their relationship was just, I want a successor who can wield both fire and ice, who can succeed All Might. That was his sole focus and his sole goal, and when he finally gets someone who he thinks can do it, when he has, we'll call him Dabby because I don't really remember his proper name, Toya I think it is, but we'll call him Dabby because everyone knows him as Dabby. When Dabby comes along, he thinks he's got it, but then he has the meeting with the doctor, and the doctor says, well, he has this power, but he takes more after his mother than he does his father. His body really can't handle the flames, and just that look of just horror on Endeavour's face, that look of sheer disappointment coupled with frustration. He wanted the perfect successor, he thought he had it, and by the looks of things he had been training Dabby up for quite some time, and now, well, he hasn't got him. He hasn't got him, and he's royally pissed off at that. And seemingly from the moment that happened, well, time to get another kid. God almighty, it's horrible. It really is horrible. And you can see how Dabby became who he is. Like, from the moment he was born, you get this sense of he was spoilt by Endeavour. This kid's gonna be the one. He's gonna be on the succeed me. He's gonna be the perfect one. He gave him all his time, all his attention, and then he figured out that Dabby couldn't handle the flames, so he was dead to Endeavour, effectively. He just cast him off. He threw him to one side. He didn't want anything further to do with him. And the rest of his life, up until the moment the incident happened, was effectively him just desperately trying to get his father's attention. Just to be seen by him. To be acknowledged by him. I mean, I don't even know how I could comprehend all of that. Just how horribly things just unfolded. Like, maybe in another timeline, maybe in another life, maybe Dabby could have become a hero, even with the fact that his body can't handle the flames. You know, he just needed a protective suit. I'm sure that the hero technological science people could have figured something out. Could have developed something that would allow him to protect himself from the flames and yet properly harness it. But he never got that far because he was so ostracized and pushed aside by his father that he never got that opportunity to really develop or grow. There's a line in it, I don't even know I want to address it, where he's talking about how he entered puberty far later because of the quirk and all that kind of stuff running around in his system. Endeavour essentially created, I don't even know if I could really say it, but a freak of nature, effectively, to try and stroke his own ego, and then when he didn't get the results he wanted, he just threw him away and just didn't support him at all. And the moment he got a child who seemingly was able to handle both fire and ice, that was the focus, that was his sole focus, and Dabby was just thrown aside. I appreciate the fact that we got a better sense of how Rey fell apart. We just saw the decay of herself. I know I keep using the word decay, but that's the only word I've got right now, because like I say, I've not written anything for any of this. This is all just my feelings off the cuff for the episode itself, because my God, I can't write anything about this because I just don't have it within me to write it. It's just so heartbreaking, every single aspect of it. Just, this is probably one of the best episodes of My Hero Academia I've ever seen, and it's also one of the most difficult. Like, how would you even return to this episode after the fact? It feels horrible. Like, I don't even know. You know what? I'm gonna get lost into a tangent. So I think for the sake of balance, let us tackle the negatives, such that they are. And to be honest, I don't really have any negatives for this episode, as is often the case of episodes that are this good. Any kind of negatives that come to mind are just really minor nitpicks and just differences of opinion, stylistically and structurally. I don't think we needed the wacky moment with Bakugo. Oh, he's so angry and he wants Deku to wake up. We didn't really need that. I understand, but at the same time, we did kind of need a moment of levity with an episode like this, because we did watch a child burn to death almost. We're seeing just the total rotting away of a human being, just consumed by anger, rage, and revenge, almost literally. Like, you need a joke in there, you need something in there to make you feel as though there's some sense of hope, which we do get towards the end of the episode, where the pro heroes are saying, right, we're all going to work together, and of course we do have the matter of them now starting to take more of an interest into what One for All is. I could have sworn, I don't know, I'm fairly certain that All Might has used the words One for All at some point in his career, so the fact it feels like a totally new thing, I don't know. It just might be the first time anyone's looked at it and thought, hang on a minute, why are they talking about it in regards to Deku? I really don't know. So without anything to do, let's just get into the overview and just say that, yeah, this episode was just utterly fantastic. There's really no way in going about it. It was a nightmarish descent into just domestic madness, just the passion, rage and determination of Endeavour to find a successor, and just the destruction that wrought upon his family. He was so consumed at the idea of finally getting one over on All Might that it destroyed his family. And it's one of the major, I don't even know, the major tipping points for the destruction of faith in the hero system in Japan. And as I mentioned in last week's episode, you know for a fact that in this wider world, people in other countries is now going to start looking at their heroes and wonder to themselves, are these guys on the level as well? You know, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum, and you've got to bear in mind that their world isn't too dissimilar to ours. It's going to be just as connected, and their equivalent of Twitter and Facebook or whatever is going to be filled with people saying, I don't know about that Turbo Man. And there's something about it, Thermo Man as well, yeah. What's up with him? He don't seem a bit too wired up properly. Maybe there's something in all of this. But, you know, I don't have anything else to say aside from the fact that, yeah, this episode was just fantastic. It was depressing, oftentimes pushing me to the point where I was just having to hold back tears, I will be honest with you, but it was brilliant. A brilliant piece of drama. With all that said and done, now let us into Comment Corner! Only one comment this week, and to be honest, given just how heavy some of these episodes have been, I can imagine it's not going to be that active in the comment section again, but you know what, that's fair. I mean, if people are just feeling a little bit broken by all this stuff, they need time to just step away from it. I understand. I totally understand. Our comment comes from X1, who says, that moment with Endeavour broke me. And that, of course, will be in relation to the moment with Endeavour where he just breaks down in last week's episode. And yeah, I imagine that was the case for a lot of people as well. This particular little arc, it's going to be weighing a lot of people's minds. I perfectly imagine there'll be a lot of people that are skipping this. I know that some people skip it because, filler, I don't like it, I want to sponge cycles, But there's other people that are going to say, look, I understand it, I've read the wiki, I get it, but I don't want to go through this. I'm not going through this kind of pain and suffering at this time of the morning. And I get it, I perfectly get it, but for me, I can't skip it because I do these reviews, and also I'm fascinated by the drama of all this. It just kind of knocks into a cocked hat, just similar kind of stuff that you see in superhero fiction. Like, let's be honest, there's a wealth of superhero writers and directors and producers right now who desperately want to create dark, edgy, gritty, grounded depictions of superhero-ness, and it oftentimes for me just feels intensely adolescent, and it feels like, in certain cases, like that bloody Watchmen remake where the people involved in it don't really understand the source material, and just by virtue of making movies that are dark and mysterious, that somehow conveys a level of quality to them. Yet you have stuff like this, which is deeply uncomfortable at times, but at the same time, it has a level of realism to it which you can't get away from, which adds weight to it all. I'm not going to get into a big debate upon superhero dark stuff. I think that's not really been the remit of stuff that we do, but as I've said before, I think that My Hero Academia does not get the credit it deserves when it comes to tackling certain subject matter. As with instances like this, it tackles it with a level of nuance and sophistication that I feel that other writers, directors and producers could really learn a thing or two from. But that's just my feelings on it. What did you think, dear listener? Did you love this week's episode? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And I will get back to you shortly, and you will get read out in next week's show. As for me, I just need to take a little bit of time to recover from this week's episode, and I also have a bunch of technical crap to deal with. The mother of all computer errors happened on my computer yesterday, and I had to reinstall Windows, so I just spent the past few hours just fixing everything. So that's what I'm going to be doing after I finish editing all this. So with that said done, thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!